This thing that I have found is what I would call my gracious space. Hey folks, Jack here with Gracious Spaces, and here we are once again in Old Town Orange. We're high atop the beautiful plaza this historical town has to offer. And today, I've got the privilege of sitting across from Tony Rodriguez. And it's funny, I spend probably more with him than I do some of my employees because full disclosure, he's my personal trainer and good friend. And welcome this morning, Tony.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here, Jack, and pleasure to be able to go ahead and speak on my behalf and obviously our behalf.
Well, I tell you, we've gotten to know each other because we were 3 days a week with each other, and
quite a bit.
Yeah, and it's like, where do I start? There's so much about you. You know, 11 years in the business of personal training in Orange County. You've competed. You've very accomplished, and tell us a little bit about that journey, but there's going to be so much more we want to cover. So briefly, just give us a little bit of 101 on yourself.
For sure. So I've been an athlete pretty much most of my life. From that, after graduating high school, I started getting into more nutrition and dietetics. My very first job was actually at a grocery store called Mother's Market.
Yes.
And for those of you that don't know, Mother's Market is a very health conscious grocery store. It was even more so back then than it is now, because now it's bought up by conglomerates, but they're still very mindful.
They take a lot of pride in ingredients.
Yes.
Where they source their food.
Correct.
Kind of
so I was very fortunate to be able to go ahead and have that as my first job, because they would go ahead and put us through seminars and different nutrition trainings where we learned so much about food, nutrition, dietetics, supplementation, all that stuff. So I've come across a great deal of knowledge in that field. So from that, I started working out a little bit more because I wanted to maintain my activity. Now that I wasn't in sports, started going to the gym. And then I made some friends that got into bodybuilding, and that really caught my attention and intrigued my interest. And from there, I started learning a little bit more about body mechanics and how to put on a little bit more muscle. And the rest was history.
Yeah. Well, I love it too. You have a philosophy of, gosh, I have to look back here. Fuel good, feel good.
Feel good to feel good. That's right.
And I love that. So it starts with nutrition pretty much.
Correct.
Do you feel like on that path of bodybuilding that you, that's how to say it, you jumped into it without a lot of knowledge? You just wanted to be kind of like the big guy around? Versus trying to implement some mindfulness to it?
Definitely. I think that when I first started this journey, Jack, it was definitely more from an egotistical standpoint and more vain perspective as well. All I cared about was having a good body, honestly, at the time.
Some already, right?
Exactly. But gradually, as I progressed in my journey and the more I came to learn, I realized just how important it is not just to go ahead and look good, but to feel good, right? Yeah. And as we get older, we start to really feel the repercussions of that if we're not taking care of ourselves, right?
Yes.
So that's where I really got hooked into it. And I think that as I started to go ahead and train more and more people, you come across a bunch of different personalities. And as you very well know, you get to know people on a very deeper level, right?
Much deeper, yeah.
So I've come to realize just how important, how crucial that is to be able to go and how that correlates, right? It has a direct correlation. If you feel good to feel good, the better that you go ahead and eat and you take care of yourself and your body, the better you're going to feel and the better you're going to be able to go ahead and perform overall, right?
How was that transition for you? Was it difficult? Was it kind of, I mean, you're one, I know you fairly well, so I can say you're one to soak up knowledge. You just love information, right? So I imagine that led you down a path, but did you find it difficult at times to kind of remove yourself from that more of a visual aesthetics and trying to be what they wanted you to be versus what you wanted to be?
It was very difficult, Jack. I mean, if you think about it, I started bodybuilding when I was maybe 19 years old. You're going into a sport where you go ahead and go into months or sometimes years of preparation to step on stage for a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And you're on stage where you have a couple people in front of you that are ready to go ahead and judge what's not so good about you after you've worked so hard to go ahead and prepare for this, right? What that does to you psychologically in that sport. Don't get me wrong, I love bodybuilding. I still do love bodybuilding, but I think that you have to be in a very strong minded environment and place, right, in your life in order to go ahead and be able to go ahead and do that in a healthy perspective. Because what that does to an 18 or a 19-year-old, right? You could only imagine you're working so hard to go ahead and be the best that you could go ahead and be just for somebody to go ahead and come and tell you that, well, not too good enough.
Well, and it's a conflict because you want to move forward and continue because you love what you just did. It takes a passion, dedication.
Correct.
But yet you're getting some people kind of beating you up a little bit. And it's kind of...
It's conflicting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think therefore people around you are key as well.
Correct. Yes. I'm so glad that you actually touched up on that because I have been very fortunate to be able to have a very strong group around me from the jump. I'm an only child. So I was forced to either learn how to go ahead and pick up my social skills. If not, I'm going to be a very lonely individual. So thankfully, I've had a small group of very good friends that honestly, I would go ahead and say that they're family. And because of that, I've never really had to go ahead and go through therapy myself, which although I think that it's phenomenal for everyone to be in therapy, especially if you don't have somebody that you could go ahead and talk to, right? But I've found myself being able to go ahead and practice being a lot more vulnerable around my friend group. And I think that definitely played a big role as to how I was able to go ahead and shape my mindset and understand what's important and what's not important and what is best for myself as well, right?
Well, you're touching base on therapy, so it's interesting because a lot of time I love my therapist. She's awesome. Yeah, she certainly has helped me. But there's a lot of times when we're together and you're using words that she uses to me. Like, oh yeah, I know how to do that already. I'm going to do that. But you build relationships with your clients, and is that difficult at times, or is there a line you have to draw? Is there?
There is. So I'm going to tell you, Jack, that's one part of my career that I absolutely love. And that's why I really started to fall in love with personal training and lifestyle coaching, is because I come across a bunch of different personalities, and I've come to realize most of the time when they come in to seek help and guidance, for the most part, a lot of the times, depending on the demographic and the age group, they're either coming in just to go ahead and make sure like, hey, you know what? I want to go ahead and feel a little bit better about myself, the way I look externally. But gradually, as we progress with the program, they come to realize just how much mental health that they need to improve on as well, right? And that, like we were talking about, that has a direct correlation with
part of the experience, the growth.
Yes, it is part of the growth. And if you're not strong enough mentally, then you're definitely not going to be in a position to go ahead and push yourself towards some of these physical limits, right?
Yeah, it definitely goes hand in hand. I mean, for sure, I'm going to have a much better day lifting when I go in with a better attitude. What Correct. I find with you is you help draw that out of me. If I think I'm having a bad way or weak or difficult or even stress, I show up, and that's why I'm there with you. I need to answer to someone, and you help that in me and pull that out. So I would imagine taking that from client to client. How many people do you see in a day? On average,
give or take, depending. I got anywhere from 8 to 10 sessions a day, and some of them are group sessions. So it could be anywhere from 8 to up to maybe 15 people a day sometimes.
So I just want to point out, I mean, we show up, we do our thing. Next client comes, but for you, that's got to be mentally at the end of the day, exhausting. I mean, I think everyone out there should, if you're seeing some personal trainer or a lifting coach or boxing coach or whatever you want to say, remember the person that's there with you because
is a human being.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know. That's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think that because of the fact that I enjoy it, it's not so mentally taxing. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are some times where it is a little bit draining, and I get a little bit of emotional baggage kind of let down on me a little bit more than I would like sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's the reason why I have to practice what I preach also, and I go ahead and take that personal time for myself as well.
Yeah.
You know very much as well that I love to travel, and so I got to go ahead and sometimes just put it in the calendar. You know what? This weekend I need to go ahead and go out, or this whole week. I'm gonna make sure that I spend that time for myself to go out and just try to go ahead and invest in myself a little bit as well. Recharge. You
definitely practice what you preach.
Yeah,
and that's important. Yeah, of course. And I think that's important. So for me, let's say, or Sally Sue, she goes on vacation and she comes back, oh my God, I ate so much. And, I don't know if I can get back into this. And, what is your advice to them when they've come back and they're a little bit like, I don't think I can lift that again, or I did that weight. I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. I'm not going to do that today.
For me, the advice that I go ahead and give in that situation is just consistency. Just show up.
Yeah.
Show up. Don't expect anything from yourself other than just to show up.
Yeah.
If you could go ahead and just be there, I could do my part to help try to guide you as best as I can. But any little improvement, progress that you could go ahead and make is still nevertheless progress, right?
So if you show up already talking yourself out of it, where do you think you're going to go? You're talking yourself out of it, right?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So you got to turn that around.
Yeah. And then it comes down also in that situation, I think people got to understand what type of individuals they are. You have to be true to yourself, right?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we were talking about this earlier today as to understanding what type of individual you are and being true to yourself in the sense that, do you need that accountability?
Yeah.
Right? When people think of hiring personal trainers, for example, right? They're like, dang, well, that's a pretty big investment for me to go ahead and make. I think I could go ahead and do this myself.
Yeah.
But be true to yourself. Are you really going to go ahead and do that yourself? And there's some individuals that definitely will. They have that in their character. But unfortunately, a majority of us probably won't go ahead and do that consistently, right?
Well, and not only consistently, correctly.
And correctly with the right guidance, correct.
So if you're at a gym, whatever, and you're watching you want to learn, so you're watching other people at that gym, they may not be doing it correctly. I can do that,
Yeah.
And then knowing your limits. I think you can read your client. We're going to go up on that. Or let's draw back on that.
Correct.
Or, we're not going to do 10 reps. We're going to do 8 reps. We're going to do it perfect.
Actually, as a matter of fact, recently I've had a few more of these clients in particular that normally that's what I would go ahead and find is clients that I would have to go ahead and push them towards their limits, right?
Yeah.
But recently I have one particular client, as a matter of fact, that I can think of right now that he's got what people call that Mamba mentality, right? Where that's literally verbatim is what he calls it as well. Yeah, I love him. And his issue was always that he was on that workaholic grind. And in his mind, it was the more effort that I put and the max I could go ahead and push myself towards.
Beast it out.
Yeah, then the more efficient I'm being. But then he would go ahead and find himself towards burnout.
Yeah.
Right? And then you get to injury, exactly.
Yeah.
So you get yourself to the point of diminishing returns in that aspect.
Yeah.
So sometimes people need a coach to go ahead and let them know what their limits are.
Yes.
Hey, you know what? This is where we're going to go ahead and stop. Trust me, you're being efficient. You do not need to go any further than this.
Efficiency.
Right?
What do they say? Something like climbing a hill steady versus fast or something like that.
Correct.
It does you no good to do it incorrectly.
That's right.
You'll make more strides the correct way.
That's correct.
Yeah. So there's different sort of avenues you can go down with training, and I would define those as like a one-on-one session, a group session, or even online session. You hear a lot about online right now with social media and online coaching. And what are your thoughts on those 3 avenues?
I think that all three of those have their own benefits. But once again, it goes back into understanding what type of individual are you and which way are you going to go ahead and find yourself the most consistent in and the most efficient as well, right?
Yeah.
I always suggest one-on-one training because that's where you're going to be the most efficient if you have a very good coach involved with you, right?
Yeah.
You are now making sure that that person is physically invested into your goal as well, right? He's there with you along that journey.
Yeah.
And people would argue with maybe the online training stuff is the same, but unfortunately a lot of that stuff is automized now, right?
Yeah.
So it's generalized and it's not really individualized for each particular individual, right?
Yeah.
And we're all different. We all have different needs. So the amount of time and effort put in from the coach's perspective sometimes isn't that much. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't a really good online program out there that you could go ahead and make. There definitely is. But the thing is that then you have to ask yourself, am I going to go ahead and follow this plan?
It's hold yourself accountable.
Correct. You could go ahead and lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink in that aspect, right?
Yeah. You got to step up.
You have to step up.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong to be on that other end of the spectrum where you feel like you need that accountability,
Well,
right?
there's people that travel as well. I mean, at least they're fitting it into their life, you know?
Correct.
And that's the perfect avenue for them to go down.
Correct. Yeah. I have clients that, they come in on a revolving schedule where it's every week they'll go ahead and hit me up and say, hey, you know what? Do you have any openings this week? I'm in town. Mm-hmm. And that just once a week session that they're coming into, it makes a big difference.
Huge.
Right?
Yeah. How do you yourself hold yourself accountable?
I love this question. You know what, Jack? For myself, the way that I hold myself accountable is I'd like to imagine the person that I would really admire, the person that I would feel motivated by, the person that I would really admire to be. And I try to really be that person, honestly, day in and day out. That's not just with my physical life, but also with my mental life, with making sure how I go ahead and treat people. It goes to every different category imaginable in that sense. I can't be a hypocrite, especially if I'm a lifestyle coach and I go ahead and you understand how many times I give advice and have conversations like this with my clients.
Yeah.
And if I'm giving this advice and I'm not taking it myself, then I'm not being a very good lifestyle coach, am I?
Yeah.
So I try to remind myself that I cannot be a hypocrite and I have to go ahead and practice what I preach in that sense.
Yeah. And then people are going to see that. And they're going to admire that, and it's going to trickle down to them as well, I would imagine.
Definitely, yeah.
When you meet someone for the first time, they're there, they're going to check you out, see what's going on. What's your process in assessing them and their needs?
My process in that way is I like to go ahead and really see how motivated they are, or how well committed they're going to be towards their goals, right?
Yeah.
Because I've had many clients in the past that because of the fact that you think that you're paying for a personal trainer, all of a sudden you're going to go ahead and get all these results, right? It takes two to tango in that sense.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that you're going to be an individual that's actually going to go ahead and follow through with the plans, and you're going to be receptive, and you're going to be a great student at the end of the day, right? You have to be coachable. If you're not coachable, it's going to be very tough for you to go ahead and get to your goals. And I could be talking to a wall half the time, and that's going to be very frustrating on my end also.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure that it is a good fit at the end of the day.
So any success stories in that regards where someone came in and he or she were, I'm here, I'll do it. And then you're like, I got to stick with this.
Yes, actually, one particular client that comes to mind, he actually lost a total of 45 pounds now. And that's in a matter of about 4 months that he's done that, for like 3 to 4 months, which is a significant amount.
But done correctly.
But done correctly, exactly.
Good for him.
But he's been my client now for... honestly, maybe well over going into like a year now.
Okay.
And for the duration up until these last like 4 months that he actually really started, that flip went on, It was a matter of just maintenance. I was just happy just making sure that he's maintaining at that point, right? And he went through a breakup. And
I was going to say, I bet there was someone involved.
Yep. And as soon as he went through that breakup, he came into the facility one day, and we're going through our workout just like we normally do. And I could see that he was very bothered by something, and there was a lot of anger and a lot of emotion, not in a good way, that was preventing him from actually being able to go ahead and work out. I was at this point talking to a wall.
Yeah.
And in the middle of one of his sets, I said, "Hey, let's go ahead and step outside for a little bit." So we stepped outside, and we sat down, and we had a heart to heart. And I asked him, "Hey, what's going on? Like, I could tell that you're not here, you're not present, and there's a little bit of anger or frustration. I'm not too sure. You got to go ahead and let me know. If you don't let me know what's going on, then it's going to be tough for us to go ahead and really have you present here, right? And being goal oriented.
So either go home or
that's. I mean, at that point, 100%. That's what it is.
We're just wasting our time at this point.
100%.
Yeah.
And luckily, he was able to go ahead and really open up, and we had a very long and meaningful conversation. Wow. And from that day forward, Jack, he switched, and I would say by far he's one of the most recent big success stories for sure that I've seen now.
And I hope you take the time to reflect that on yourself, because that right there is what separates you from a majority of other trainers. You go above and beyond. You're caring about their mental health as well as their physical health, and that's huge.
Yeah, I appreciate your awareness in that, Jack.
I honor that and admire it. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. So what about within the community of what you do? Building relationships, friendships, sharing knowledge. It's a small industry, one would think.
Correct.
And how has that impacted your life?
It's are you asking in reference to like trainers or just overall with like athletes and bodybuilders and all that stuff?
Your counterparts.
So trainers, luckily right now in the facility that I'm in, and obviously a biased opinion, but also from an objective standpoint, because I've been to a few different facilities as well to train.
Yes, I had to interject here. When you travel, which you do a great deal and fun traveling, you usually zero in on where to go to work out at, because that's fun for you, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's always a priority. Every time I travel, I tell myself I at least have to go ahead and check out one of the facilities wherever it is that I'm going.
There's like the Mayan temples here and a gym here, and you're like, oh, we're going to the gym first today. I love that. But anyway, sorry, I had to.
It's okay. So in the facility that I'm in right now, I'm obviously there for a great deal of time out of my week.
Luckily, how many years have you been there?
I've been there for 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
And this is the Art of Fitness.
Art of Strength Fitness.
Art of Strength Fitness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're
correct.
Okay.
And and I think you could go ahead and comment on this as well. Most of the trainers, all of the trainers, honestly, are phenomenal people overall. And that's one of the things that I feel like I've kind of seen that has been a deciding factor as to where I wanted to go ahead and end up in as far as a facility goes. It's determined by what the environment's going to go ahead and be, right?
Yeah.
Everybody there, you walk in, all the trainers go ahead and acknowledge other people's clients, and it feels like a family. It feels like home. It feels very welcoming, right? Nobody's trying to step on anybody else's toes. I think communication is pretty well. If there's ever any issues, it's not like high school drama type of stuff, right?
That's the worst.
Very good communicators and very good people overall, and I think you feel that. And if you're going to go ahead and be in an environment for the majority of your week, right? Yeah. You want to go ahead and make sure that it's a very healthy environment for you to be in, and it's an enjoyable environment.
It's a part of the process as well, just as key as the food and the connection with the trainer.
Correct.
All these things matter. I know we were talking the other day, and we're kind of glad that warmer weather's here, because you've got these two big giant garage doors there, and you open them up, and it just makes
that
the world
free air.
Yeah. So that's good. So friendships then out of these relationships with other trainers. What about the sharing of knowledge? you've gotten pretty close to a few people that do what you do, I imagine.
Yes. I've been lucky enough to be able to go ahead and actually learn from some of some of the trainers that actually work out of the facility. Sometimes they have really good pointers. We have really good trainers there at Artist Strength training facility also.
Yep.
But I've learned a lot through some of the coaches that I have hired in the past personally when I was bodybuilding. And that's both good and bad. What I got from it was some of the stuff that I was able to go ahead and actually incorporate to build my own program. But I also learned what I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Right. And the way that I felt as a client, right, in that situation. But yeah, for the most part, what I do like is that if anybody has any questions, everybody is more than willing to go ahead and help.
Open door policy, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
But you just mentioned something about what you've learned, and you can learn from good and bad experiences. End of the day, it's you. It's your brand, your philosophy, how you educate, and that reflects on your client.
Correct.
It goes right to them.
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to what type of trainer you are. And then there's so many different types of trainers, and there's a lot of good trainers, but unfortunately there's a lot of bad trainers also.
Yeah.
But you could see it through the passion, right?
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that overall it's not just somebody that's knowledgeable that's going to go ahead and tell you what to do, but somebody that's willing to understand you.
Yeah.
Right. I think that is very important to go. It's a key take to go ahead and get, because somebody that's going to be well invested in you wants to know about you. Yeah. Right.
Well, and I have to point out on my end, I don't expect you to comment on this, but you kind of pay for what you get out there, you know?
I agree.
And so I encourage people, don't necessarily look at that price point. If it seems kind of expensive, research it, because it's probably going to benefit you. What is your take on social media and what you do?
I'm laughing because we have conversations about social media all the time. And I think social media is very powerful. I think it's a great tool to go ahead and use, especially for business. Granted, what we're doing right now, right? Yeah. And I think it's it could be very helpful for people. Because you get to go ahead and reach out to an audience that you never would have been able to, right, in the past. So I think it's a very powerful tool for business. I think it's very helpful to go ahead and reach the masses. But I think that if you're doing it in the correct way, you're approaching it in the correct way. I think a lot of people don't use social media for that perspective. Yeah. I think people usually use social media to go ahead and kind of disconnect from the real world, right? But unfortunately, that's once again keeping us out of the present. Yeah. And that's just a way to go ahead and just keep another distraction on the side.
Well, we chatted about this the other day about I am so guilty of it. I get up, first thing I do, reach for my phone. And we chatted about how my body is craving endorphins. Like I need activity.
That quick dopamine fix.
Dopamine. And so there's some research happening now that maybe you don't need it so fast because it's going to take away from the dopamine that you need an hour later. And so you're kind of depleting your body of some of that because you need that quick fix.
Correct. That's correct.
Yeah. And I think social media is also, you got to not let it compare yourself to others. I think that's the
biggest thing there also. I think that's what's really, unfortunately, messing with especially the youth's mind. We talked about when I was bodybuilding at 18 or 19 years old, you're a sponge. You go ahead and absorb everything, right? So that's including nowadays, since social media is so much more accessible to the youth. Now you find yourself just comparing yourself to whoever it is that you're looking up to, right? Yeah. Or maybe somebody that you end up being envious about. And I saw this quote, which I'm probably going to go ahead and butcher. But it was somewhere along the lines of like, most of the time you're envious about a life that doesn't even exist. right? So people put they only put whatever it is that they want you to go ahead and see on social media, but in most cases that's not even their life that they're actually living. Right? They want to make it seem like they're living this like extravagant, happy, healthy life, and in all reality, when you go ahead and really get to know the individual, you see how much they're struggling. But that's so bad for it's so bad for the overall mental health, because now you're creating that social norm, right? This is what society thinks that you should go ahead and live up to. You should be at that level. You should be living like that. But that's not the case at all. Once again, I think that's why it's very important to make sure that if you don't understand the steps necessary to go ahead and take to go ahead and really focus on your mental health, therapy or lifestyle coach, personal training, all that stuff. Make sure you get some good guidance.
I have to laugh, and I don't want to change the topic too drastically, but a plant shop. I get people coming in all the time and just, I love it. They want to share a part of their life.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Same kind of thing. It's like
exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the nutritional aspects.
Okay.
You've been very good with me. I'll be shopping or whatever, and I'll send you a label. I'm like, hey, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
And you can read a label like nobody's business and dissect it, and like, oh, you might need this or that, or that's okay. And I love it because you sometimes never give like a straight answer, buy it or not, but you break it down, and then I have to make my own decision.
I try to do my best not to go ahead and give you a yes or no answer.
Yes.
If I give you a yes or no answer, then that means that I'm a very busy individual at that point, but I'm probably going to go back and tell you exactly why I said yes or no. But yeah, I think that that is very important to make sure that it's one of the most important things that I think that you could go ahead and pass down as far as education goes, is teaching people about nutrition and ingredients in general also, right?
Ingredients, where it came from. Exactly.
Unfortunately, it's the way that the FDA the Food and Drug Administration, which is the people that regulate what we go ahead and ingest for the most part. It's not a heavily regulated industry in the sense where they're really going through obstacles to make sure that we're eating or drinking the best ingredients at all times, at least here in America, unfortunately. So you have to do your due diligence to make sure that you educate yourself to go ahead and understand exactly what it is that you're putting into your body. And granted, and once again, I'm not being a hypocrite, because I personally love having a cocktail and I know 100% that's just poison that you're putting into your body, right? But at the end of the day, you understand that the majority of your life, if you're living a very healthy lifestyle, you have the allowance to be able to go ahead and do certain things like that. Go enjoy yourself. If that includes bringing the quality of your life up because of it, then by all means, make sure that you're including that into your life, right? Everything in moderation, once again. But yeah, you shouldn't go ahead and deprive yourself from whatever it is that you actually enjoy doing.
Well, there's great alternatives out there.
And there's great alternatives.
And most larger grocery store chains have gotten on board with that. They may not have aisles and aisles like Mother's Market or Whole Foods or something like that, but it's there.
Correct.
You just got to dig for it,
Yeah.
It's hard to pass up that cookie aisle. I love it.
Yeah. You know what? Sugar is an interesting topic because I always go ahead and relate sugar to a drug, right? I know it's a lot. I'm going to get a lot of people that disagree with me on this one. But if you think about it, the way that a drug addict goes through withdrawals for drugs, right? We go through withdrawals for sugar also. That's the same reason why we end up going ahead and craving a lot more sugar. The more sugar you eat, the more sugar you're going to go ahead and crave. And that's why it's tougher to go ahead and try to go ahead and put that out of your normal diet for the first couple of days or weeks sometimes, because you find yourself in a position of withdrawal.
With my journey with you and being educated a lot, there are periods where I go and I really, really watch my sugars. But then, I go get that piece of pizza that needs a Coca-Cola with it. And I'm drinking that Coke and I'm like, whoa, I got like a sugar buzz off this half a Coke. And,
Yeah.
so it goes both ways, when you're off of it and then you get back on it. It's like, wow, where did that come from? I used to never feel that way.
Do you feel like you start craving it a little bit more after you go ahead and have something like a Coke?
I've gotten to the point now, that was kind of tasty with that, but I'm
now you're a lot more mindful.
Yeah, because that adrenaline I got from that sugar, I don't like feeling that way. And so, I craved it at that time. I did it. Fine. I move on.
Yeah. That's a very powerful point to be in your life, Jack, to be able to go ahead and fulfill a craving and just drop it after that.
It took a while to get there. Yeah. But then again, there's alternatives, in the ice cream world, yogurts and whatnot. So
correct.
Yeah. So yes, you yourself do a good job at balancing. We just touched base a little bit, on the weekends. Yeah. It's okay to have like a different kind of meal or a bigger meal or have a cocktail or, that's a part of life balance, right?
Correct. Jack and I are huge foodies, by the way. So
I love food.
So I definitely love going out and experiencing a different culinary sit down restaurant and then trying different food out, have a cocktail with it if need be. Yeah. I love that. That's even when I travel, I love going ahead and experiencing that. But that's the whole point, is how you could go ahead and bring your overall quality of life up. I understand that. I know that I'm a very healthy individual overall. So when I go ahead and do that, I'm not beating myself up about it. Right.
One of my favorite stories is you were probably a little younger, but you're dedicated. You're on the path. I think it was when you were competing. And your friend's like, hey, Tony, you got to go out with us. And, no. You resist. And next thing you know, all right, I'll go with you. But you're in the bar eating
with my Tupperware. With my Tupperware and my food.
Because you got to get the meals in,
asking the bartender if he had a microwave.
Yes, that's dedication right there. Do you miss competing?
I don't know if I miss competing. I think I miss the preparation for it. I loved being in that disciplined mindset to see how far I could really go ahead and push myself. Yeah. But that's an athlete in me, Jack.
The drive.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I do miss about it. Yeah. Because I love challenging myself. I love seeing how far I could really go ahead and push myself in that sense. Sometimes mentally and physically. Yes. But understanding where you draw that line is very important, I think.
So if I were to ask you what you are doing for cardio the most right now, what competition has brought in your life, do you know what you're going to say?
For cardio-wise?
and competing.
Oh, and competing.
It's something you've picked up recently.
Pickleball. I knew exactly where that was going. That's funny. Yeah, I've and that's another great thing that I go ahead and try to preach also, is that I personally hate running on the treadmill. You won't find me anywhere near a treadmill, honestly. Yeah. But I do encourage you to go ahead and invest some sort of time out of your week into some cardiovascular activity, right? So for myself, because I understand that I don't like running on that treadmill, an alternative for me is, because especially having the sports background, any type of sport that I could go ahead and get into. Yeah. And then I think now that we're a little bit older, I want to make sure that it's a sport that's sustainable, that I'm not going to go ahead and find myself injured.
For your age.
Exactly. Yeah. So, it's something that I really enjoy, and it's something that I preach as well, is make sure that you find something that you actually enjoy doing for cardiovascular health as well.
So if you had to give these folks that are listening sort of some key points to implement into their life, and we're not talking like, right out of the gate running hard, but kind of ease into it. If they're looking for a fitness journey and they're not quite there yet, what would be some key points you might encourage them to do to implement that in their life?
I think that if we're going to go ahead and start with nutrition, prioritize your protein, your lean sources of protein. That's your chicken, your white fish, ground turkey, and what I mean by those lean sources of protein, it's protein that doesn't have a lot of fat in it, right? So start learning how to go ahead and, or not even necessarily learning, but just getting into the habit of looking at the nutrition labels and seeing how much protein does this have, how much fats does this have, right? And then if you're able to just do that and make sure that that is your foundation for most of your meals, protein is your foundation, that's going to limit the amount of carbohydrates and fats that you actually include into that particular meal. You do that for the remainder of your meals, then you're going to be in a pretty good position. Make sure that you're hydrating. Also, hydrating isn't just drinking enough water, but making sure that you're getting electrolytes, enough salt throughout the day also. I've been seeing a lot more people kind of stray away from salt because a lot more people are getting scared about sodium. But remember, we need to make sure that we have enough salt in us to be able to go ahead and absorb that water as well. It doesn't make a difference if we're going ahead and drinking all this water, but we don't have enough of those minerals to be able to soak it up, right, and absorb that water.
And that's a carryover even to your sleep, right?
Correct.
Sufficient amount of water, minerals.
Correct. Yeah. And that's another key point is make sure that you get enough sleep. That's one that we're working on with Jack right now.
I'm struggling with that right now. So I know fads come and go, Instagram reels, and you've got the hip words and all that. But ones that I really sort of took me a while to sort of digest or understand was macros and micros. Tell us a little about those and why are they important and the difference between them.
So macronutrients refers more to the nutrients that you're going to be able to go ahead and receive to give you energy. They're the ones that make up calories, right? We need calories. In other countries, calories are referred to as energy. So it's however much energy you're actually giving yourself, right? That's calories. The more calories I'm giving myself, the more energy I'm giving myself.
Makes sense.
That's your carbohydrates, your fats, your protein, and believe it or not, alcohol is also a macronutrient.
So I can have a drink before I work out with you?
Unfortunately, that's going to do absolutely nothing for you.
Would not do that, folks. Just kidding.
So each one of those macronutrients has a caloric value. And each one of those macronutrients has a particular function in the body. So that's as far as macronutrients goes. I won't go too much into detail on that because this will be a full episode on just that.
Just that alone,
Micronutrients is based off of all your vitamins and minerals. So that's to make sure that the whole system is actually operating properly, right? So it's very important not to just focus on one or another, but to be able to incorporate both into.
They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand, correct.
Do you have a go-to right now as far as food goes? I know you meal prep. You're very conscious about what you bring to work and eat throughout the day.
You know what? I'm about to go ahead and give some crazy promotion to this company, and I better get some
at least a T-shirt out of it.
At least a T-shirt out of it. But I have most recently found myself it's been tough for me to meal prep due to time. And I came across Kevin's meals or any type of sous vide meals. Costco has a few other sous vide meals that you can go ahead and do. And what I mean by that, it's quite literally, it's meat that's it's pre-cooked already. It's sous vide. So it's cooked like in a very good condition, right? And then you just go ahead and I just open that up, throw it on a skillet, and then I get the microwavable rice, which I should probably make the rice by now. But it's the easiest way to go ahead and go about it. If you want to go ahead and tell me that you have no time to go ahead and meal prep, there is no reason why you should not be doing this. This is an easy alternative, and I guarantee you, if that's the only thing that you stick to, I will guarantee you that you will go ahead and get to whatever fitness goal that you're trying to get to.
I've got them in the fridge right now. I love those Kevin's meals.
Kevin's, you got to send a shirt or something.
Something, right? Leo, let's make sure we tag Kevin's. Let's see what happens. So people want to know more about you. They want to see you. They want to ask you questions. Social medias, website. Give us all your.
I mean, for the most part, I run most of my stuff on Instagram, the only social media account that I'm really going and checking in on. I think that's more than enough at the moment.
I admire that so much in you. There's so many avenues.
There is,
Keep it simple.
But yeah, tko.tony is where you can go ahead and find me. If you have any questions or concerns or anything, I'm more than happy to go ahead and address them.
And he's not kidding, folks.
I'm not kidding.
We don't want him up all night or interfering doing with his life. But yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing about this guy right here. He will take the time to do that.
Appreciate that, Jack.
Any advice, words of wisdoms?
Yes. Make sure that whatever it is that you're doing in life, you're doing it because you have passion behind it, and it's something that's going to go ahead and make you happy. I think the overall take, I hope that if there's one thing to go ahead and take out of this, it's what we've been touching up on nutrition and health overall. But health in general overall means your physical, your mental, your spiritual. Make sure that you're prioritizing that, because I guarantee you, if you're not doing it willingly right now, in the future, you're going to be doing it from obligation, whether you want to or not. And at that position, it's going to be more of a reactive position as opposed to proactive. Learn to be more proactive in these situations. I know you hear this all the time now on social media. You have so much information going back at you, and the stuff you hear over and over and over and over and over again, right? Is make sure you're taking care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Actually soak that message in and try to adapt that into your lifestyle. It's not a coincidence that you continue to hear this over and over and over again.
And it's so easy to read it, but not do it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Feel good to feel good.
Feel good to feel good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tony, for you're a busy guy. I appreciate it. And
of course.
We'll have you on anytime you want to come back on.
Thank you for having me, Jack. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Have a good day.